Dream for all. Okay, this is what you guys are all waiting for. We're going to get into the Dream for all. This one is the one that provides a 20% down payment assistance up to $150,000 to help you buy your first home. California Housing did this last year, and they helped 382 families get into homes with their first round. The second round is bigger. They're expecting to help over 17,000 first-time home buyers get into a home with this one. Under the Dream for All, that 20% that you're getting, the 150K, you do not have to make monthly payments on. It is also at 0 interest, which is awesome. So no interest is accruing on that money at all, which is wonderful. The only, I guess, catch you could say is the fact that it has what's called equity sharing. What is that? Well, we're going to go over that. So I'll explain what that is and give you an example of equity sharing, but it's not as bad as you think. It's really not. It's pretty good. You are required to have one person of the people who are purchasing the home have to be a first generation home buyer. Only one. A first generation home buyer is someone who has not been on title, held any ownership interest, or named on a mortgage to a home in the last 7 years. Okay, so 7 years, and they go basically from calendar years back. So your parents cannot have any home ownership interest in a home. So it truly is for first generation buyers. Their parents didn't own a home, but they get to own a home. They'll be the first generation to own a home, right? So it truly is for that. Or if their parents are deceased, they didn't own a home in the time. How do they know this? Well, when you guys register for the program, once you're pre-approved and you register online for the program through California's website, and we'll go through give you all that later. But when you do, they're going to ask you questions. They're going to have you state under penalty of perjury, did your parents own a home? Did they own a home in the US? If you say no, and that's fine, but they did, they will find out. They're going to do a title check. They're going to see if those guys ever owned a home. So be aware of that. If you have just one person, but the other person, I've got one right now, his parents own a home now, but her parents have never owned a home. So they qualify because she's never had a parent that owned a home, and he does. So as long as one of them does, then we're good to go. So also, if you've ever been in the foster care system, group home, anything outside of a normal home environment raised in, you are automatically eligible. So that's something to know. If you ever were in it, even if you're only in it for a short time, you went home after that or whatever, you are eligible automatically under that. That's one of the caveats that they put in the system for people, which I thought kind of cool. Okay, we talked about a 680 minimum credit score. Now it's something to know to get, we talked about debt to income ratios. Remember, that's your income versus the house payment and your other debt. You can only get to a 50% debt ratio if your credit score is 700 and above. That's important. They did make a distinction. They said you only need a 680 to get the program, but if you want to max out and go up to 50%, then you have to have a 700. And that means the lower of the two, if you have a couple and one has a 700 and one has a 680, you're going to qualify, but only one has to have the 700, not both. Okay. If you're at 680, then you're at 45. So again, you can't go to 660. That's not available. They're not actually doing that. I checked, and I don't know why they put it in there, but I read their updated guidelines, and it's no 660. So 680 is what's required. They do have a low income guide program though. And we can talk about that. So the second lien from California Housing Finance Agency is the lesser of 150,000 or the 20% of the sales price or appraised value, whichever is less. So if the house, $500,000 was the purchase price, but it appraised at $490,000, then it would be based at the 490, not the 500,000. So the 20% would be based on the lower of the two. So it's either the sales price or the appraised value, whichever is less. If they're the same, then you're fine. So you can use it for down payment and closing costs, like we talked about. You don't, if you have closing costs of your own or getting a gift, then you can use the full 20% down payment for just the down payment to avoid what's called mortgage insurance. And we'll talk about that. Where it says minimum CLTV, that stands for combined loan to value and maximum. So basically the minimum combined loan to value of the first mortgage and the second mortgage is 95. It used to be 100. So people could basically put down nothing or put down 20% and still get the 20%. Now a minimum of 5%. So what that does is it takes the people, here's what happened. Last year, a lot of the people that got the money really didn't need the money. They had the money already, they were approved and they had their 20%, but they wanted to use the extra 20% to lower their payment even further. It shouldn't have been allowed and it was wrong, but that's what they did. And California Housing realized that. They said, oh, you know what? This wasn't designed for people who already could afford it. It was designed for people who really need the money. So that's why they redesigned it now where the 95 is the minimum. They can't put down 20 more percent. They can only put down 5. That's it. They can't put down more than that. And I think that's good. I think that's going to weed out a lot of people that have a lot of cash that just wanted to use this program to really lower their monthly payments to a much lower rate than they would normally have, right? Makes sense? Okay. So they can go 80, you can still do what's called an 80-20, which means 80% first and a 20% dream second. So that's 100% of the value. You're still not having to have a down payment. Okay. 105, it means if 105 means if you've got another program, they actually do allow, like if you have a county program or a community program or something that they don't mind going in third position, a lot of them won't. But if we have one that does, then they will go to 105%, which means that 5% you maybe need for closing costs would be covered by that, right? Because that would be what you'd be using it for. You wouldn't be using it for necessarily the down payment because it's more than 100%, but you use it for closing costs, that extra funds. I haven't found any community programs yet that want to go behind a 20% second because there's just, there's not a lot of security there for them. So they're not really wanting to do that. Okay. So the timing, this is not a first serve system any longer. It's going to be a lottery. Okay. It's going to be a lottery. So people who are qualified buyers and get pre-approved, they will get a California Housing pre-approved letter. Then they'll go on to register on the California Housing website. Once they register on that site, then they'll be entered. Now, you have between April 3rd and April 29th. That's the cutoff, April 29th. April 3rd, April 29th, cutoff. So that date, if you haven't gotten your registration done, you will not be in the drawing. Okay. So that they will, what they'll do is they'll weed out the people who don't qualify. They'll make sure that people that did qualify, because they're going to check these things. Like I said, they're going to verify these things. So that's why you're not going to hear from them till about, I think they said May, I think May 5th or May 12th, something like that. I'll have to look. But anyway, they'll come out with a date when they're going to be posting. And so they'll notify you if you won. They'll notify you that you were chosen, and you'll get a voucher. And that voucher is going to say, okay, based on your lender's pre-approval, you needed this amount of money. We've approved this amount of money. And that's what the voucher will say. And you'll use it when you go to make an offer, because that's your down payment. You're going to show the voucher, and then you're going to show the letter from the lender that you're qualified. Okay. And you have 90 days. I think we talked about that too. You have 90 days to locate a home and reserve your funds. You don't have to close within 90 days, but you have to reserve your funds. So what happens is you register to get into the drawing, you get a voucher, you then start looking for a house with Olesya and Yami. You find a house within 90 days, you enter escrow. As long as you're in escrow by the 90th day, you're okay, because then I can register and reserve funds for you as long as you have a house in escrow. I cannot reserve your funds if you don't have a house in escrow. Okay, a house in escrow is the key then. So once you're pre-approved and you're looking for a home, and don't be discouraged. It's hard out there right now. It's very tight inventory. It's difficult, but if you're patient, and you open your you open your window up a little bit to maybe some options that, like we talked about before, aren't your first choice, not where you want to be right now, but work for your situation to get you into the home, then that's something that you can, go ahead and make your home, and then move from there as you go. Our income limits as to how much you can earn. And I'm just going to tell you, in Orange County, you can earn up to $202,000 a year. Okay, that's pretty good income. That's $202,000 a year means you can earn up to $16,883 a month in Orange County. And then if you're buying in Riverside County, it's $149,000. San Bernardino is the same. LA is $155,000, and San Diego is $185,000. So I know you can't see that, but that's what the numbers are. You can't exceed that income. So if you make more, this program's not going to work for you. If you make less, that's fine. You can, can make a lot less, and as long as you qualify for the loan, that's okay. My average buyer, first-time buyer, earns about 110, maybe 105,000 a year, around there. It's my average buyer range of income. But I've had buyers lower 60,000 a year. I mean, it just depends on your needs and where you live and what you can afford. But don't let that stop you if you think you make too little, because with the 20%, you might still be okay. So don't let that stop you. Okay, and we're going to go over shared appreciation. Okay, this is how it works. Basically, when you purchase a home under a shared appreciation, that income that that appreciation that you earn on the house increasing in value every year, right? Right now, I would say average appreciation is about 5.7%. Oh, we got somebody new wanting to come in. About 5.7% on average, which means if you bought a house for $500,000, then it goes up 5% the next year. Now that'd be like $525,000, let's say, by year one or by year two, right? 5%. So then another 5% on 525 is going to be it's going to be higher than 25, because it's now based on 525, because appreciation stacks on itself. So we're just kind of doing a real easy to compare. So we're saying that your home value when you purchased was $500,000, and 5 years later it's worth $640,000. That is not a far-fetched at all. That is not unusual at all. I have seen much higher appreciations than that in 5 years. It just depends, of course, but let's just assume for now we'll go off of this. So you bought for $500,000. You got the house on an 80-20 split. That means 80% first mortgage, which is the $400,000, and $100,000 in your dream for all, right? That's what the DFA stands for, dream for all. Okay, so that makes up the 100% of the purchase price, $500,000. 5 years later, the house is now worth $640,000. Now, one of the cool things is that when they're looking at home appreciation, they also subtract out the costs you pay for selling that house, because this is assuming that in 5 years, you're selling that house. Okay. So you're selling that house in 5 years. The gross appreciation is 140,000. We know that, but they'll subtract out your costs for selling that house, okay, which will bring the costs down and the appreciation amount down. This is just doing a real down and dirty quick number, but just be aware that that actually could be less than what you see there, because it's going to subtract out the cost of selling. The costs of selling, to my mind, are around 6 to 8%, maybe even 9% altogether. I'd say at least 6, right? Or 8 of the purchase price of the home. Would you say, Olesya, about that?
Okay. Yes, so probably roughly, yes, somewhere about around there. Of course, it depends. And, in large part, it will depend on the commission part, which we are not discussing, period, because it's really decided based on case by case basis.
Right, right.
But roughly, yes, you're looking somewhere there.
Okay. Okay. So then that brings the amount to pay to the Dream for All down, because it comes off the top, which helps. So in this situation, you made $140,000 on the sale of the home. You got to keep 112, and the DFA was 28. You still had to pay back the original 100. So remember, your loan balance was much lower too, because amortization would have brought that $400,000 balance down to about, well, in 5 years, you're not going to get a whole lot, maybe 392, I would say. So it's still a little bit less. So in any event, you still keep the difference. And if you put 0 down and you end up with 100,000, I think you did pretty good. I'd say you did pretty good, right? I'd say so. So
Yeah, I had this conversation with so many people, and at first they are shocked because they don't like anyone to be deducted out of that money. But when you go down to the bottom of the question and say, okay, well, it was not your money to begin with.
right.
So you are actually making money on appreciation. That's an amazing tool.
Yes, it is.
You get a home where you don't have to report to the landlord why you got this kitten or why you got this puppy or something else. You don't have to worry about them trying to sell it now or a year from now. So
Absolutely.
peace of mind, plus you have an opportunity to come out of this home ownership with
Yes.
an additional money.
Yes, correct. Absolutely. Absolutely. It's a great where to start. Also, know that the loan is not due and payable unless you sell or change the title. Okay, any title changes, or you refinance the loan. If you refinance just to lower the rate, which a lot of people are hoping to do in the next year or two, if the Fed starts to lower rates, and we think they will, that is okay. You can do a one-time refinance to lower your rate, keeping your dream separate and alive. It's still sitting on your house, but your first mortgage can be reduced. The interest rate can be reduced. You can't take any cash out of your house, so you can't take cash back. But as long as you're just reducing that interest rate, that is acceptable. You can't increase the loan balance either. So there's things they don't want you to do because they've got a large sum of money on your house and they want to make sure it's secure. But you will be able to reduce that rate should rates drop, and they will in the future. You could maybe go into the 4s and lower your monthly payment. The California housing is all about what is beneficial to the buyer. So if it's beneficial to the buyer to lower that rate and that monthly payment, which it is, they will allow it. Okay. They won't allow you, however, to pull out cash. So you can't take cash out. If your house appreciates at 640,000 5 years later, and you're like, oh, I have money in my house, I want to get that. Nope. You have to leave that in there. Otherwise, you will trigger the shared appreciation. Even if you're keeping the house and you're not moving, then you've got to pay back the loan plus the shared appreciation. So, you could do that with a refinance, but in most cases, unless rates really do drop a lot, and I'm not saying they won't, I've seen rates as anywhere from, gosh, I've been doing this 9.5 to 2, so I've seen the gamut of interest rates. It's very possible, if they go down that low again, then it might make sense to refinance the whole thing, get out of the shared appreciation, pay them off and be done with it and have a lower rate. But you'd be having to finance then those funds that were sitting on the house and accruing with the appreciation, right? Any questions on that? I know that's a lot to take in right there. Okay, so now we'll be into the question and answers phase. I'm sure you guys have lots of questions and no question is dumb. Any question, I'm happy to try to answer. If I don't know the answer, I'll get the answer for you. A lot of people ask me, will I get this in some kind of a form, like a slide presentation? Yes, I will do a slide stack. We had a little difficulty with it earlier today, but I will clean it up and send a slide stack of the dream information that you need. If you're interested in moving forward, you will need to go and apply. People, when people apply, okay, first of all, there is a cost for the credit report that you will pay. Other than that, no other cost and no obligation. If you decide it's not for you or whatever, no harm, no foul. You're done. If, however, you carry it through, then you'll apply online, you'll create a password, you'll have access to a secure site to download your documents into our drag and drop, whichever is easier for you, into buckets that'll already be pre-set up for you to put your pay stubs in, your W-2 forms, your bank statements, your taxes, all that stuff. So it'll all go into these buckets. Once you complete the application, send in your documentation, I will be notified and I will be able to run the credit with a credit card. There'll be a form in there to fill out a credit card information. There'll be $70 for a couple or a single person. So just so you know, that's what it costs today. Used to be 30. When I started, it was 28, went to 38. After like 20 years, it finally went to 38. Just last year, all the credit bureaus raised their scores because when COVID hit, nobody was getting loans. And then when the mortgage market took a dive because interest rates were risen, interest rates have been increased in an insane amount. Interest rates have been increased over, if you look for where we were in 2020 at about 3%, average rates around 6.5. So we've doubled, more than doubled interest rates in a very short time. We went up. So the market kind of froze. People weren't getting loans because the rates went up so fast. They weren't expecting it. They just kind of went, ah. And so when that happened, the credit bureau said, we don't have any business. We can't survive if we don't have any credit reports coming in. That's when they started to raise the price. So they raised it from they went from 38 to 62 to 65, now 70 this year. So it is what it is, folks, but it's required. So you'll need that. So you'll need your documentation like we talked about, pay stubs, W-2s, tax returns, bank statements, a copy of your driver's license, all that. So we have to ID you. You have to know that we're dealing with the person on the picture. So once all that's submitted, it typically takes 24 to 48 hours for me to review it and submit it for approval. So it's going to be pretty fast. It's not going to take long. If there's an issue or a problem, I'm going to call you and go over that with you and we'll talk about it. If everything looks good, then I will let you know, hey, I got your application. It looks good. Hey, I got your credit report. It looks good. Loan submitted, approved. Once you hear it's approved from me, a California housing voucher it's a pre-approval letter. It shows your name. It has the loan amount, the purchase price that you're approved for. So you might not go that high. You might find something less. I'm going to approve you for the maximum usually, because here's what happens. If you say, oh, no, I don't want to go to my maximum, I only want to go to this, but then you find that perfect home and it's 5,000 more or 10,000 more than your pre-approval, I have to reapprove you. I have to submit you over again to underwriting. So you can't make an offer right then. I have to have time to get your loan resubmitted. If I'm busy, that could take me 24 hours. So best to get, you don't have to spend that much. You don't have to go to the max, but best to go to your max on your pre-approval. Doesn't mean you're going to go that high, but that way, if you find that perfect house and it's 2,000 more than what you wanted to spend, but it's right in your range, you want it, you're good to go. So that's important to know. So I have a link that I can put in the chat, and you guys can go there and apply when you're ready. Understand that everybody's going to start registering on April 3rd, so be aware of that. And you are going to need to take a down payment assistance education class, okay? There are two that you're going to need for the dream. You're going to need the normal one, which is just being a first-time buyer, okay? It's a first-time buyer education class, and I will provide the links for that. You can go through eHome on eHome site, or you can go through NeighborWorks. Both of those are online, or you can go to any HUD-approved educational course. Now I can send a link for that, but that's a little more difficult. Those are a lot of times you have to go there personally and that kind of thing. So I recommend eHome or NeighborWorks. Those are better, in my opinion, they're good classes. They will, it's a self help course. You can start and stop it and save where you're at as you're going along. It is an 8-hour class. So a lot of clients will start on one day and then they'll work through the week and they'll finish it by the end of the week, or they might start on a Saturday and work for 4 hours on it, and then Sunday 4 hours, whatever you want to do. You just have to finish the class. Once you finish the class, then they're going to set up a phone call with you. That phone call is to make sure you understand what you read, what you went over. They're going to ask if you have any questions about what you learned. And then they're going to send a certificate to you that says you completed the first-time home buyer class. This certificate I need. So when you get it, you forward it to me. I need it. It's required for your loan, so I need it. It's good for a year. So, something happens and you wanted to buy this year and you couldn't, you had to wait. It's good for a whole year. So that's helpful. When you're doing the DREAM program, because of the shared appreciation, you also need a second class called a shared appreciation down payment assistant education course. This is from CALFA, California Housing Finance. They have a link, and that link should be available. It wasn't available yesterday. It might be available. I have to check. It should be available soon. The best practice would be to get your paperwork in, get your pre-approval, also do the shared appreciation. You don't have to do the other course just yet. You can wait to see, if you get the voucher. But the one, you do want to get that done, because that one, it will help you. Now, do you have to have it in order to apply? No, you don't have to have it to register. Okay, that's one thing to know, but they want you to do it because they want you to understand shared appreciation before they give you a voucher, right? Okay, so it just makes sense. So they'll want you to do that one. You don't have to do the 8-hour one yet, but you will do it during escrow. It is required, and we cannot get what's called final loan approval clear to close without that. Very important. So you can do the one class to get the voucher, get into escrow, and do it while you're in escrow or before, whatever. It's just know that you're going to have 2 classes that you're going to have to take. 2 classes. You'll be very well educated when all is said and done. Very well. And what do they go over? They go over what it takes to buy a home. They go over what is credit, what, kind of the things that I went over with you. They're going to go over with you in a little more detail. They're going to talk about budgeting. They're going to talk about, when you own a home, like when you rent, the landlord takes care of things that break, right? That's their job. When you own, it's your responsibility. So you have to set up a budget to cover, home repairs. You got a sink that breaks, or you got, a roof that needs repair, whatever it is. You want to set up a budget so that, just like you own a car, things break on a car, you gotta have funds set aside so that you can fix the car. Same with a house, you gotta be able to fix the house. So that's important. You also will have a homeowner's insurance on your house too, though, and a home warranty plan. That's required. You have to have a home warranty. So the lender wants to make sure that your systems are all good, your plumbing and your electrical and your stove and your they also cover free refrigerators now. They want refrigerators covered. So all these things are covered in a home warranty plan. So if things like that break, then the home warranty covers that. So that's important. And the homeowner's insurance cover against fire, smoke damage, typically not flood. Flood is a separate policy. If you're in a flood zone, 100-year flood zone, you will have to have flood insurance. And, you don't have to have earthquake insurance. Nobody requires that in California, which is kind of funny because we have a lot of earthquakes, but no earthquake insurance required. But yes, homeowners insurance is required, and we can help you get all that set up when the time comes. I know she's got plenty of people that she knows.
Julie, you're so thorough. Thank you so much. I mean, I love the detail as to the budget that we all don't think about, right? Things break,
Yes,
and we have to have that budget there.
Absolutely. Yes. Yeah, that's needed. Yeah. Okay. Yes, there are other programs besides the Dream is just a very specific program that we're going over. And we're thinking about putting together a series of programs. There are a lot, let me tell you. There are more than, I would say, probably 120 programs for first-time buyers and second, even if you're not a first-time buyer. There's something called CRAs, which are Credit Reinvestment Acts, that a lot of lenders are offering. You do not have to be a first-time buyer on. And there are grants and things like that. You do not have to be a first-time buyer. So don't let that dissuade you from owning a home. Just this Dream program is just very, very specific.